What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Legacy Podcast. Today I'm here with my beautiful bride, Kate. Love you.
Oh, love you.
And 11 years married, and another 7 on top of that dating. So 18 years together. And we are co-authors of this book series called Little Legacy Learning. And so we have 4 kids' books, and we're going to talk about kind of like the origin story of where these come from and kind of some cool stuff that we're looking to bring out in 2025 as well. And also dive into how do we attempt to instill some of these really cool success principles, entrepreneurial principles into our kids, even though it doesn't feel like it always lands the way that we hope it does with them. But keeping it all top of mind. So, welcome to the Legacy Podcast. So, Kate, let's share the story about how Little Legacy Learning came to be.
Starts with you.
You want to start with your version of it, or?
No, I'm not going to take this from you. You start. It's
All
your
right,
story.
All right. So I was coming back from a mastermind. I think it was like 2016 or 2017, something like that. And as I'm on the airplane, I'm reading a book called The Magic of Thinking Big. And as I'm reading this book, I was only in like the introductory chapters of it. And as I'm reading like the prologue or whatever, I'm like, these principles are so good. They were so profound in the first handful of pages. And I'm like, I think at the time I was, I don't know, almost 30 years old. Or no, it would have been more than that, right?
Yeah, 32.
I was like 32 years old. And so I'm like, I'm learning this at 32. Imagine if I was 2 years old and got to learn these values and learn these principles and how that would have shaped my life, to have greater successes earlier on and just have a better mindset earlier on. And so as I was on there, like, I don't know, God, the universe, plants a seed in the back of my head of, well, you need to find some kids' books like these. I Google and can't find anything. And all of a sudden that thought blossomed into, well, if you can't find anything, you got to do it yourself. And I sat on the idea. We sat on it for at least 2 years, until about 2019, which is where Kate and Aaron come in.
Yes.
And so we were on vacation together down at Disney with the kids and the families, and our co-author, Aaron Slivka, one of our best friends, and our kids all model up to the same age. And we're hanging out in the pool after the kids go to bed and talking about business, talking about life, talking about all things family. And I had shared this idea that I had. And I was like, I've been sitting on it for 2 years, but I don't know how to bring it to life and all these other things. And I remember Aaron and Kate raised their hands.
Aaron raised faster.
Aaron raised her hand quickly.
Goes, I'll do it. I was like, wow. She's like, you'll do it with me. I'm like, oh, okay.
And so that's what it turned into.
That was it.
And so I had, conceptualized the idea, and then mainly these books take some of the big ideas and big concepts of the best classical personal development books in the world that are time-tested, that have been around for a long time. And we've taken those concepts from an adult perspective and turned them into a kid's perspective. What age range would you say these books are mostly for?
We wrote these specifically tailored to 6 to 12-year-olds. Hudson, our 7-year-old, has been reading them since 5.
Yeah.
Keeps a set in the back seat of the car, reads them when we're ever in the car. But I think even our nephew, who's 13 now, a couple years ago, was still interested in it too. So I
mean, literally, there's parents who have read these books that are kids, and they're like, I learned something new. Thank you for writing this. And so like the concepts are big, and they're very mature concepts, but written into very understandable storylines, and that have. And by the way, I didn't write. Right, I gave the ideas and the concepts, and like, here's I think a really good principle that would be good in this book. And then Kate and Aaron took these things and ran with it and put these awesome storylines together. And pretty light read. You can knock it out in a few minutes. And they're based on, like I said, the classical personal development books. So Think and Grow Rich turned into Think Big and Go to Baseball Camp. Right, How to Win Friends and Influence People turned into How to Win Class President and Influence Peers. The Richest Man in Babylon turned into The Richest Kid in the Neighborhood. And the power of positive thinking by Norman Vincent Peale turned into the power of positivity. And so, high level, Think and Grow Rich, Think Big and Go to Baseball Camp. What's that one about?
Having dreams, goals, working through it, realizing that there will be certain things that you'll have to put on the back burner if you want to reach that goal.
Like sacrificing things you care about
Yeah.
for things that are even more important long term, right?
Correct.
Like
the right now for the future.
yeah, and I think that's a a big concept that I think as adults we get, right? You can eat a candy bar now, but that's not going to be good for you in the long term. Or you can exercise now; it's painful, but it will be good for you in the long term. And so, I think coming up with some of those concepts and making kids aware of that
and kids now
is going to be
too,
decision making.
They have such like instant gratification that they don't really think too far like that. It's here, it's right now, and they want it immediately.
Yep. And it kind of gets them into thinking of like, how will this affect my future, right? Is this a good decision or a bad decision? Is it good for my health? Is it bad for my health? Is it good for my bank account? Bad for my bank account? Is it good for, my friendships or bad for my friendships? And so, this was our first book and our foundational book. It became an Amazon best-selling book the first day that we released it, which was in 2020. And we got real excited. So we had a couple other books that were in the process. Our second book was How to Win Class President. What's that one about?
This one's about, like other people. You want to be able to be a good listener. You want to be able to, this says influence peers, but win friends. So Ford, is trying to learn how he can get his peers to like him, but not like in a
manipulative.
Yeah,
manner,
not like in a I just need people to like me way, but to like really get to know people and become a leader.
Showing genuine interest in other people and what they do, and then all of a sudden you create that connection, right?
Yeah.
It's what leaders do. So this book's all about leadership and leadership skills, developing that and then implementing it in a real situation of Ford, the main character, is running for class president, and so how he goes through that process, and it's a really, really fun story. Our next book was this one, Power of Positivity. What's that one about?
Our big tagline in this one is like the attitude of gratitude.
Yep, big time.
Which is so important, I think, to us and to teaching our kids. And just, it can change your whole day if you just flip things that way. So.
Yeah, Kate and I both grew up very blue collar, right? Her dad was an electrician, her mom was a nurse. My dad was a
physical therapist, but.
Oh, sorry, physical therapist. My dad was a cop. And my mom was a teacher, right? And so you couldn't get more blue collar. And from that standpoint, we didn't come from money. And then all of a sudden, we work really hard, we build these businesses, and we live on the beach. And we have an awesome mountain house that I was able to syndicate and get seller financing on and all this other, and then we rent it out as an Airbnb and turn this liability into an asset and all this stuff. They don't know what goes into that, right?
Yeah.
They see this lifestyle of never knowing want, of just having everything that they could ever imagine and desire, and having it at their fingertips. Oh, hey, I need a new whatever for school. You press a button on the phone, it gets delivered in a box to our house the next day, So putting it in perspective, having something to compare it to is a big deal for us in raising our kids. And saying, hey, you got a lot of really good stuff. You won the lottery, You guys came into this life, and 8% of households have air conditioning. We have 5 or 6 of them, I think, in our house, right? It's obscene. And so to put things back in perspective for our kids is a very, very big deal of this is not normal lifestyle. You guys are living a dream right now. Here's what other kids have to go through, and here's something you can compare it to.
And this one, is one that I think they need to read because they don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. So even if we say things like, be grateful. You should be grateful that you can go on the beach at any day, anytime, whatever. Well, they don't know any better, like you said. Mm-hmm. So to just kind of read and put it in the back of your mind, just little bits at a time.
Yep.
That it sinks in.
Yep. It's a lot about that story of I felt bad for the person with no shoes until I met the person with no feet. And that whole kind of concept of there's always somebody in a different situation, different circumstance. And when you start comparing like and thinking about what you have instead of what you want, it really reframes things for the family and for the kids. So that's a really important one for us. And a really fun one is Richest Kid in the Neighborhood. Yeah. And this is, I mean, just everything's fun about it. Even the cover of it's fun. But what's this one about?
This is all about, finances and being smart, learning how you have to earn money, keep it, invest it. And that's how, as Penelope would say, financial freedom.
Yeah.
She learned that one very young.
Probably 3 or 4 when we started doing that. And so this one's about, the simple, not easy, but simple process of building wealth, of earning money, saving your money, and then investing that money, putting it to work to then multiply when you're not working. So that way you can have that financial freedom where your residual and passive income exceed what your monthly expenses are, and you can go do whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want to. And so it's a really cool concept, and they all kind of like weave together because it's a lot of the same characters. Mm-hmm. He starts a business cutting grass in the first book, and then all of a sudden he's making money, and what does he do with that money? And he makes some really bad decisions on what to do with that money, and then meets some people in the neighborhood who give him some ideas and give him some strategies and concepts on how to do better things with his money. So it's really fun. And by the way, these are like amazing gifts. If you have somebody's birthdays anywhere between 5 to 12 years old, these are fantastic gifts. The holidays, right, are coming up, so Christmas presents, these are fantastic for, I don't know, so maybe somebody had a baby and they're not able to read these right away, but packaging these up and giving to them is like a really cool baby gift instead of just the same old, onesies and standard baby gifts. So that's cool. And speaking of like a younger version of these, what's kind of our plan for 2025? Our
goal and our plan is to make them into board books, which are easier for the littles to hold and obviously shorter.
So more of a toddler version of these, right?
Yes. So taking the same stories and just obviously making them a bit shorter and turning it into a gift, for the littles that you can start letting them read and play with. And
so more like the 1 to 5 age range. Yeah. Just a fun book. Keep it over to the side. They'll echo the same storylines and some of the same principles, but we'll probably, I don't know if we're going to make them rhyming or whatever, but we're kind of in the works of that. But keep an eye out for that in 2025.
We want to try. We'll see.
But yeah, a lot of exciting stuff that we're working on, and let's talk about, like, that's what this is. Yes. But let's talk about how do we implement this in our kids' lives. Is it easy?
No.
Is it one and done?
Absolutely not.
All right.
I think obviously letting them read the stories and getting the ideas and kind of meeting the characters has been fun for them because they kind of then can relate if we were giving them an example to what happened in the book. But honestly, I think the biggest thing is, we wrote the books. I've had to read the adult versions of it. I've become a different person. Mm-hmm. So it's leading through examples, trying to show all these principles like as we do every day. And
it's like, this isn't something that you have the conversation one time and it just sinks in and they know it for the rest of their life. It's like, how many different angles can you share these examples? So we're talking about donating, right? Like one of the things that we do from a contribution standpoint is like, our kids got a lot of toys. And so we fill up a bin of toys, and for taking that bin, we don't throw them away, we go and donate it, right? Because there's other kids who don't have toys, and we have that conversation with them. And so they read about it in the book, they practice it in real life.
They'll sometimes even offer it up. They'll be like, oh, I don't need this, or maybe it's a gift that I want to donate it. So it's that one is getting ingrained.
And giving them something to compare it to. Maybe you drive them through the tougher parts of town. Maybe like we're going to Africa next summer, and they're going to see a different style of life, right? But guess what? There's a different style of life right here in Charleston and in every major city. Take them to the soup kitchen and let them, like they're old enough now where we're talking about like having them volunteer and doing a lot of stuff like that. We take them out and pick up trash and pick up litter out on the beach and do things along those lines. Yep. From a standpoint of think big and go to baseball camp and setting goals and setting these ambitions and those kinds of things. Like, what are some things that we've worked with Penelope and Hudson on that front?
Well, they have their own journals that they've been able to write in, and they can come up with that, like, ideas and goals, or just even
reflections on the day and how their feelings were, and what they did, what they learned, right? What they wanted to learn or didn't, or what they got to do that day.
Yeah. I mean, and like goals kind of for them, I would say right now are more school related, Penelope hip hop related, Hudson soccer related, stuff like that. But they're small, they're manageable, and they're just kind of starting to learn. So
yeah. Pip has some ambitions, and we're going to do a podcast with Penelope on buying her first rental property, and we're going to go through this whole process, me and P, and we're going to go and find a house. She's going to go through the whole process. She's going to do all the math. We're going to break it down to a fourth grade level for you, because Penelope's in fourth grade right now, on how a fourth grader who's not even 10 years old yet can buy their first rental property. So we're really, really excited about that, and that will kind of spill into this one, which is buying assets.
This cracks me up because Penelope has been teaching people about assets and liabilities for years. Mm-hmm. Didn't she just teach it on the stock exchange floor to somebody?
Yeah, she was telling somebody when we were at the New York Stock Exchange about the difference between assets and liabilities, and what's an asset, what's a liability.
They might be a little bit financially driven, which is fine. I always was. They know how to kind of separate their money for saving and spending, and they're not real quick to spend their money, to be honest.
No, they're not. They spend yours and mine.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
They figured out how to who the assets are and how to save their own money.
They pay for some stuff.
And then the class president one and leadership skills. I think this one reminds me of, I think about Hudson a lot. He was like so shy the first couple of years, and now he's way more outgoing and making friends. And I don't know whether he implements these principles when he's meeting his friends or not. Like, it's kind of cool to see some of the developmental growth.
And I can say that with Penelope and Hudson, like, one of my goals for them with meeting people is, like, always just ask them about themselves. People always want to talk about themselves. So when they're at a playground, well, why don't you just go find a friend and maybe ask them something, maybe you have something in common. Even with their girlfriends coming back from hip hop, Pip's like, sometimes we don't have anything to talk about. Ask them a question about themselves, and it will get the ball rolling, guaranteed. So
yeah, I love that. And so it's really cool. So we've got these 4 right now. We've got the kids or the toddler versions of each of these that we're hoping to release in 2025. And then I think another really cool thing was the event that we hosted in Boston, right? For the Legacy family.
That was cool.
And I think, what were there, 30 or 40 kids?
There were a lot
That came out to that, ranging in all different ages. And it was a little bit chaotic because it was
lessons were learned.
5-year-olds who couldn't read.
Correct.
Up to
Teens.
17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, I think is what, 6 to 16, I think was the age range. And so it was a little bit chaotic having everybody in the same room.
Yeah.
But it was cool to kind of go through that experience. And I know it meant a lot to the parents who were able to then bring their kids out. And, these parents are it's lonely being an entrepreneur. You can't have these high-level conversations with just anybody who doesn't have the same experience or can't give you feedback, or feels like it's, hey, I don't know how I can contribute to this conversation because I've never been in that situation. And to start, putting their kids in those circumstances and get them to meet other kids of entrepreneurs whose parents work a lot, but at the same time have an amazing lifestyle and
doing cool stuff.
Yeah, how do you balance all that out? So any thoughts and takeaways on that?
I would say that, again, being the first time through, it went really well. Kids, they get burnt out. So by the end of the day, when you asked them, what'd you learn or what was your favorite part, they pretty much all were just like, I don't remember. Mm-hmm. But I saw on day 2, they kind of were just recalling little things once they removed themselves from it, or like, oh yeah, I really liked when Ford did this, or this part of this book was my favorite. So it took a little bit of time because, we threw a lot of information at them. We covered all 4 books. They did hands-on activities.
All in one day.
Yes, it was a lot.
We should have separated a little bit.
We've learned.
But it's all good.
Definitely had the best leaders, but
I think it'd be cool to, try that out again at some point in the future. Maybe in a smaller setting, maybe with certain age ranges.
Yeah.
But I could see how, this could turn into something like that, because I think, I know from our standpoint of like the more we can expose our kids to these positive influences, it would. Yeah, they hear it from us, but a lot of times you're too close to it.
Yeah.
You're too close to the situation, and although they love and respect us, maybe it goes in one ear and out the other, and it's good to hear it from somebody else once in a while. So that's something else we're thinking about doing, is maybe hosting 1 or 2 events in 2025 or the following year. So, anyways, it's fun. It's exciting.
This was one of my favorite things to do during nap time with Aaron. It was great.
We have not made any money off of this, so please buy a book.
Yeah.
And if we do end up hosting these events, we would love to eventually get our hundreds of thousands of dollars of money that's been spent on this and start recuperating some of it. No, but it's not about that. It's about the impact piece, especially when I think about all the things and all the amazing experience and stuff that we had. It's like almost having that ability to convey these ideas and ability to convey these thoughts and ability to create these books. I really truly feel like we have a responsibility to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see it all come to fruition.
Yeah.
You and Aaron have done a phenomenal job. Love you guys to death, and just super exciting. So appreciate you guys. You can get these at Amazon. Just go to Amazon.com, type in Little Legacy Learning, and as we have the board book versions of these books over the course of the next year or so, we'll definitely be firing it out on social media. You can check it out and all that stuff. So appreciate you being here. Till next time, see you on the Legacy Podcast.